so I've got my guy here, okay, completely covered in tape. So what I'm going to do is I have these white buckets. They will have plaster strips in them. The plaster strips are not pre-cut. You guys are going to be responsible for cutting them. You're going to take a pair of scissors. This bucket, this white bucket, never gets wet. Do not put your wet hands in this bucket. Do not put water in this bucket. Do not fill it with water. The white bucket never gets wet, okay? If it gets wet, you're going to activate the plaster. It's going to harden and it's going to go bad. So please do not get these white buckets wet. Inside the bucket, you will see a bunch of plaster. They come in these very long strips. The long strips are not conducive to wrapping your people. So what you're going to do is you're going to spend some of the time, you're going to cut a bunch of little strips, okay? And that is going to be your first part of working. You're not going to cut one strip and then get wet hands and then start cutting more strips. You're just going to cut a bunch of strips, and then once you have a lot of strips, and people will leave them in the bucket from the class before you and you'll all work together. Okay, but once you have a bunch of strips ready, then you will start plastering. I have these long strips that I will put into the buckets. Please try not to cut like weird little triangle shapes or anything like that. Just cut like 1-inch pieces of plaster. You guys see all this plaster dust on my table that's forming here? All right, don't worry about that. You're going to clean it up at the end of class. When we're working with plaster, everybody in this room is responsible for cleaning their table. You will not leave plaster on your table for the next person. It makes a huge mess. Plaster is very gunky. It gets in things. I'm going to take my rings off because once it hardens, it's like really hard to get out. Okay? So all right, I've got these little plaster strips here. You guys, everyone stop what you're doing, turn around and look at the board. Thank you. Okay, and I have some water, all right? The water never goes in the white bucket. Thank you. Very simple. If you guys ever done plaster or anything like plaster before, you take the strip, you dip it in water. You lift it out of the water. I like to take 2 fingers and take off the excess water. It also starts to close up these little holes, okay? See how the holes are like, you can see them, but they're not really there? You then take your person and you start to wrap them in plaster. Smooth out, okay, in the areas, smooth this out and take it and wrap it ever so nicely. Once it's on, you're going to take your hand and you're going to smooth out all of the holes. Don't leave the holes showing. You need to actually fill in the holes so that everything is covered in plaster. Okay, dip it in the water, bring it out, and then wrap your person. If you want to add anything to your person, okay, so now this body is like a little bit wrapped here. If you want to add anything to your person, maybe I want to put a ball in his hand. I can wet this plaster, wring it out, always wring out the plaster, crumble it up, and now I could put something in his hand, okay? And you could just stick it on there. Maybe he's playing hacky sack, I don't know. All right, and then once you have something there, you can't just leave it there and hope that it's magically going to stay. You're going to take more plaster and you're going to wrap around. If you build a feature, you need to like actually wrap around it. Okay, and smooth it out. It might look like nothing right now. You might just be like, oh, like his hand just looks lumpy. That's fine because you're going to paint it and you can accent it with the painting. Everything by the end of, what day is it? By the end of this week, Monday maybe, everything should be covered in plaster. Then we're going to paint. At the end of this week, I'll show you how to paint, or midweek. That's tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow or Thursday I'll show you how to paint your pieces. So then those of you who are ready to move on can. So my person is being covered in plaster. It looks a little ridiculous to have this ball here, but I can start to mold it. As long as it's wet, you'll be able to mold them, and then they will harden. Okay? And once they harden, they'll be ready to paint once they're completely covered. So you're just gonna go around and wrap them like a mummy with the plaster. Smooth out when you're adding new plaster to old plaster. Make sure you smooth it out going both ways. And your person will eventually be like a mummified thing. Does this make sense to everybody? Yeah. If you want to add hair, okay, you can take small plaster strips and add hair. If you let them dry or hang them upside down, they will stick up if that's how you want it to look. Like if you're making a ponytail but you don't want it to be flat to the head, you just flip them upside down or put something under it and it will dry that way. However you leave plaster, it will dry. So if you leave a chunk in the plaster, if you leave a ripple, it will dry like that. All right? Plaster does kind of destroy stuff. It's not one of the most friendly materials to your clothes and or phones or stuff like that. So just be mindful that you don't have your phone on the table while you're doing plaster because it will ruin it. Once it gets in something, you can't really get it out. Okay? So you guys are, if you want to start plastering, I will get you set up for that. For those of you that are not ready, that's fine. You don't have to be ready today, but tomorrow, hopefully we'll be ready to plaster. And once the plaster is activated, you use it immediately. You don't activate a bunch of pieces. That's like really important to note.